Hey everybody, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. Tuesday, June 11th. I'm trying to get a podcast in here after work and before school. It's been 3 weeks now of school. This will be my third week back at college after 15 years away from the institution. And college was something that I never thought I would do again. I just felt it was something that wasn't going to really benefit me anymore, that I had kind of figured out what I need to do professionally to move up in the ranks and to continue to grow and to evolve. And I was disabused of that notion over the last half year or so, 6 to 9 months, as I have perused job listings and job opportunities. I kind of found that the places that I aspire to need that next level of schooling, that master's level of schooling. And that schooling can come in many forms. There can be kind of certification processes and, 6-month things and 9-month things. But as I kind of looked through a lot of these positions that I was kind of seeking, and as I went through the interview processes, I kind of came upon the fact that the Masters of Business Administration was a very important tool in kind of distancing yourself and separating yourself to get these positions. And it's really where I want to be. And once my head and my mind kind of reaches or comes into contact with roadblocks, I have to break through them. I can't stand that there's a limit on the things I can do. And maybe there's not. Maybe there were ways that I could work around it without going to college. But the epiphany, the aha moment was when I realized I can go to college and I could be working towards something, and I can leverage my location currently where I work here in downtown Newark and go to one of the better business schools in the region. And that is Rutgers Business School, and that is the MBA program. And again, it's been the third week now. I'm going to be going into my third week of classes, which are Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. And I have to tell you, it's really been kind of exciting. It's been something I've been looking forward to. And again, it's only been a couple weeks. It's still fresh. It's still novel. But it's been really exciting to go into these classes, which can last up to 3.5 hours long. And for the most part, the full class time has been used. And I was worried about kind of my ability to hang with it, my ability to do homework out of class, to do all the work that's needed, and to honestly get to and make it through class, and then to make it all the way home when class is over. The good part of leaving Newark at 9:30 at night, and my garage is very close to the Newark Business School, as is my work location. It's like basically 2 blocks away, a quick 2 blocks. It's not bad at all. I will leave my office at 5 and I'm there at 5:05. And they have just a beautiful little lounge area, first and second floor. I go to the second floor, nice glass, and you're kind of looking down Broad Street and the buildings, and it just has that feel of kind of a premium experience that I'm looking for. I get my homework going, and I have about an hour there where I can do a little extra preparation before the class starts at 6. I'll get a little food in me. Maybe I'll stop at the Whole Foods, and I hit the class ready. I've enjoyed it. So my plan is really to take a qualitative class and a quantitative class. I'm going to try to do 2 classes every semester, including the summer, with the hope of finishing this thing out in 2.5 years. And I should be able to do that, hopefully. We'll see, though. It's early, and I'm really focused on this, so I think that I can do it. But you just never know as you kind of fall into your routines and you become just sort of the autopilot version of yourself. Will I be able to muster up the requisite energy to do papers, to do presentations, to work with groups? And I think I'm going to, because I trust in my ability to rise up to the moment. So I do believe I'm going to, and I want to get very good grades this time. I was a decent student in college the last time, but I don't think I was ready to be a very good student. And I got about a 3.0. I averaged a 3.0 over my time there. There were certain semesters, like one summer semester, where I was really engaged, and I think I got a 3.7. So I know I have the ability to do very well. It's just focus, and it's making the time to do the work, because they say that you really should be spending about twice as many hours as class time per week per class. So if you think class time being about 3.5 hours, then you're looking at needing to spend 6.5 to 7 hours a week outside of class on each of those classes. So marketing, I need to be spending up to 7 hours outside of class, and accounting, which is my quantitative class, I need to be spending 7 hours outside of class on. So that's 14 hours on top of the 7 hours that you're spending on that Tuesday and Wednesday in class. That's 14 hours to kind of find the time. And that's as a parent with a 4.5-year-old and a 3-month-old, almost a 4-month-old on the 19th. That's a husband. That's a person in me who's not home for 2 bedtimes in a row every single week, and potentially every single week with small little breaks here and there from here on out for 2.5 years. So that's kind of daunting to think about. But my wife has been fantastic. She believes in education very much, and she believes in what I'm trying to do here, what I'm trying to achieve. And so, look, 3 weeks, going into the 3rd week, it's all good. But let's see how it goes with time. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's just how I am. I'm very kind of optimistic about things, but I'm also realistic about things and pragmatic about things. And I know the way things can go once they're going for a really long time. And my wife is still on maternity leave right now, so she's home. I keep thinking, what's going to happen when the next school year kicks in next September, and I'm doing this, and now she's at school teaching, and she's doing after school activities and bands and marching bands. How is that going to work out? How's that going to work out for our kids? So this is the problem. I think too much about this stuff, and you get what's called analysis paralysis, where you think so much that you're actually paralyzed into not doing anything. But I have acted, and I'm doing it, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm trying to find the hours to get those 12 to 14 hours a week outside of class done. And look, when you break it down, when you got 7 days in a week, those 14 hours mean that you need to find 2 hours every day on top of the class time, 2 hours every day of work. And really the way my mind works, especially when I'm doing the math, I want to finish what I'm starting. And so that might mean I'm putting in 3 or 4 hours in one session in one day to finish that thing. And it's a lot of quizzes, and it's a lot of mathematical equations and problems and balance sheets and income statements. And I'll be honest, it's exciting. The math, though, is taking up about 90% of my time. Luckily, I really have the marketing down. Now, this has all been discussion. It's been 2 weeks. We do have a case study tonight. But I have been reading The Economist for a decade, for 12 years. So they often call The Economist the MBA's Bible. And so I've been reading that thing week in and week out, reading it, listening to it. I finish it every week for a decade. So I feel very prepared. For fun, I read about business. A lot of times the business things we like, a lot of time the consumer things we like interface with business when we're talking about media and movies and TV and streaming and technology and current events. So I was reading all that the whole time. And it ended up being something that really kind of struck my fancy. I enjoy it. So when I roll into the marketing class, I'm sort of prepared to speak right away. Right out of the gate in the first class, I would be having a dialogue with the professor who owns his own marketing agency for about 30 years, I believe. And I'd be having a dialogue with him to the point where the kids in the class, well, they're not kids, they're adults. We're all kind of adults in this part-time program. Many of us have kids, which is kind of, it's something that gives you a lot of pride to be in this and to look around and to know that everybody's trying to attain this status. But this professor and I were having quite a dialogue, and a lot of the other professionals in the class would say, "Oh, did you know him before?" And I go, "No. He's just going to me because when we had our introductions and I said what I did, that I'm a digital marketing professional, he knows that in this industry that I'm going to have a pretty good idea of a lot of the things he's going to talk about." So he's sort of using me as a resource to give examples that are outside of the book in real life and, in your day-to-day job. And so I'm doing that. And it's exciting. It's exciting to kind of be on the vanguard of what a class is discussing. And we had our group projects, which we had to put together last week, or not our group projects, but our groups for the group projects, which are a big part of the class. And it was kind of uplifting at the end of the class when he said, all right, everybody get their groups. And a bunch of people turned around to me and said, hey, are you in a group? And so I'm kind of the big man on campus here in that class. But that's in marketing. We always have to be open to the things that expose us. And me, it's math, because I'm not doing math on a daily basis. I'm good at math. But for me, it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of study and a lot of work to find the answers to the problems and to get there. And I do get there, but it takes work. So I'll be in the marketing class, and for me, it is natural. It's kind of just, it all makes sense to me. The textbook is like almost reading very basic, mundane facts about marketing. I sort of understand it because I've been doing it for so long. And maybe I didn't know the certain terms for it, but it all makes sense to me. Then I get to math and everything's new. But then I'm talking to people who are in both classes with me, and they have the math down because they're in finance, and then they're saying things that to me are innovative. And so it all balances out. And so I will be a marketing resource, and then hopefully I have some of these classmates who are financial resources for me, accounting resources. But it's exciting to put yourself out there, to attempt, to strive, to try, to do more, to get more out of yourself, out of the things that you can find right close by. Great business school is right here, and I'm utilizing this. I'm being efficient with it, and I'm going there each day. And I'm really just kind of I'm going along for the ride. I like a lot of control, and you can't have a lot of control because, again, where are we finding these 14 hours a week? And I'm working on it. And it means I'm not getting a lot of the consumer stuff I was doing before, where I was watching things when I'd come home. I'm reading my own things. And a lot of times that would be the New Yorker, New York Times, Washington Post. But I have to read things for school. And I have to read case studies and Harvard Business Reviews and all this kind of stuff. It's exciting, though. But kind of finding your niches and the things you enjoy doing are very important. And one of those was last night. I stayed up to watch Game 5 of the NBA Finals, a very chock full of drama game that happened just north of the border in Toronto, Canada, where the Toronto Raptors had the chance at home to close out an NBA Finals against the two-time in a row defending champion Warriors, who would have been going for a three-peat this year, who'd be going for 4 championships in 5 years. They still have that chance because they found a way to beat Toronto again in Toronto. I think it was 106-105 by 1 point. A game that Toronto was up 6 with less than 3 minutes to go, where Kawhi Leonard took the team on his back and just willed his way to about 10 points, 10-0 run, I believe. But those Golden State Warriors willed their way back and just were so impressive, using the three-point shot as a bludgeon to really take the game back and to bring this series back to Oracle Arena, for Oracle Arena to get one more chance in the sunshine before the team moves to San Francisco next year. And I gotta say, these things can turn on a dime. Toronto was in a position to close out a series against just an amazing foe, a championship foe. Warriors are truly the term for this team. They had the ability to close them out and to finish this series off with the Warriors only getting 1 win. Warriors found a way to win. This means that 4 straight games have been won by the road team now. And it doesn't give you a lot of confidence in what could happen in Game 6. A lot of it makes you feel like there will be a Game 7, because with the 4 straight wins on the road, both teams partaking, 2 for the Warriors, 2 for the Raptors, a part of you feels like will return to form, and the home team will win a Game 6. And then it makes me think the home team would win a Game 7 too. And what happened in Game 5, though, which was such a big newsworthy event, other than the Warriors continuing this series on, was Kevin Durant made his return. His first return to the court since Game 5 in the second round of the playoffs against the Houston Rockets, a game where it looked like he ruptured his Achilles or had an Achilles injury. It was an injury that was purported to be a strained calf, which should have you out from any point, I've heard, of 6 to 8 weeks. And here he was 4 weeks later, and his team down 3-1, and he on the precipice of free agency and potentially a trip to New York City for the next 4 or 5 years to man the Knicks or the Nets, maybe. No one's really sure, but the tea leaves say that it's probably the Knicks. And so he has a lot to lose. And you don't realize when you're coming back playing through injury how much you really can lose. But he lost about as much as you can lose. He came back. He looked surprisingly spry. He was hitting three-point shots. He was the offensive machine he always is. And at one point, I think maybe he'd played 7 or 10 minutes. He went to drive on Serge Ibaka, planted his right leg, and there was some shimmering up and down the leg. A lot of people seem to say that means something was rupturing. It could have just been muscle, but it didn't look great, didn't look natural, and you could tell right away he was felled by this injury. He kind of fell off to the side on the court, told the training staff and team to come over and help him, and off the court he was taken, and it looks like it's a ruptured Achilles. And a ruptured Achilles means that he's going to be out for a full year. And because this happened in the finals, a full year means he might not be back till Game 5 of the finals next year, assuming he's on a finals team. And maybe he comes back to the Warriors now, can kind of stay with their training staff and can rehabilitate and have as much a chance to play as with any team, because they probably would be in the finals again. But it was just an unbelievable blow, because it went from a guy coming all the way back, a lot of people kind of doubting whether him being out was a good move, that he should tough it out, he should come out. And this is just what can happen. You look at a guy who's so physically imposing but wispy thin, and it's just unbelievable what can happen. And a lot of guys don't come back from these Achilles injuries as anywhere near the players they were. And we're talking about a player who's a top 3 player in the entire NBA, up there with the LeBrons and now the Kawhi Leonards. Always the Kawhi Leonards, but Kawhi just brought himself back emphatically into this conversation this season, carrying a Toronto Raptors team all the way to the finals, all the way to the precipice of a championship at home, being up 6 with under 3 minutes to go, and it was all taken. And so the Warriors now head back to Oracle. The last time they headed back to Oracle, they did not have Klay Thompson because he had tweaked his hamstring on a funny landing on a shot in Game 4 in Toronto. So they didn't have him for Game 5. They did get him back. They didn't have him for Game 3. They did get him back for Game 4. They still lost that game. But now they will have had Klay for 2 straight games back, looking healthy, and it makes me wonder if Game 6 could be a very competitive game. There's no reason it wouldn't be. It would be crazy for the Warriors to lose all of their home games in an NBA Finals. It's crazy. Now, there are a lot of off days. There's 2 off days between Game 5, which was just played last night, and then Game 6, which is on Thursday. And then there would be 2 more off days as they travel back across the United States and over into Canada for a Game 7 on Sunday, on Father's Day. So there is a lot of off time here, but there's a lot of cross-country travel time as well, so it's not quite a true 2 days off between everything. But you just don't know where things stand at this point. Would I be surprised if there's a Game 7? Absolutely not. Would I be surprised if the Raptors emphatically won in Game 6? No, I wouldn't be surprised with that either. It's just so hard to tell now. And it's funny, it's what makes this series really something to behold. It's a great series because there's such unpredictability to what's happening game to game. Now, if Kevin Durant were there, it probably would be a win for the Warriors in 5 or 6 games. Although, who knows? Because what Kawhi Leonard has done this year, being as dominant as he has, and given the ability for the other Raptors players to play within themselves and to thrive, to give them the cover to just be themselves and not have to be something more. I heard one of the Toronto writers make this point on the Zach Lowe podcast. It's so true. Kawhi just gives cover for the rest of the team to just be themselves. The Raptors teams of the last few years had a lot of problems because to be a championship level team, they needed several players to play above what they can be, and that always that tends to fail. That tends to fall apart eventually because people need to be what they are. And for Kawhi, that's a superstar player. That's an MVP player. That's a Finals MVP player. That's a guy who can deliver, and he covers that. And he covered that last night. He brought them right to the precipice, and they just couldn't finish it off. So we don't know where things stand now. The Warriors are kind of the walking wounded. There's a lot of attrition there. You don't know who's going to play other than the main guys in Curry, Clay, Draymond, and Andre Iguodala. I mean, it's amazing what they're doing, that they're in a game 6 as just everyone has fallen down apart as the 5 years of this run, although the guys standing are the ones who have been here for the 5 years, which is amazing. But as this run has led to where it is, all these extra games they play year after year, attrition is finally kicking in at a high level. And it's going to be through will for them to win that game. But hey, fall into form. I mean, you would expect the Warriors to win one game in a finals at home. To lose all 3 would just be nuts. But then again, the Raptors have lost 2 as well. You just don't know. Usually series take shape in a familiar form. Usually all the home wins happen. Usually it goes like, 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, and they go back and forth with wins. This is sort of unpredictable. But then again, in some ways, the previous Raptors series with Milwaukee was unpredictable, where Milwaukee went up 2 at home, and then the Raptors won the next 4, which included 3 at home, but they did win in Milwaukee as well in Game 5. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen. My gut tells me the Raptors are going to win this series, though. But will it be in Game 7 with everything on the line? But everything on the line for everybody. That would be what this series deserves, would be 7 games. But I just think it's weird. I've come to the point where I want the Raptors to win. All of these other years with the Warriors, these last 4 years, as they played the Cavaliers every time, but even in the Western Conference playoffs, I always wanted the Warriors to win. I always wanted their template to win out because so many people were throwing rocks at it and were trying to poke holes in it and were trying to just say that it's not the way you win, that I was behind them winning because I wanted the way they play to win. The beautiful shooting, the passing, the ball movement, the skill at the highest level of the sport, a jump shooting team, a three-point shooting team, a 35-foot shooting team on the reg winning. I mean, that to me was just amazing. But there's something about this Kawhi run with Toronto and Toronto itself and the narrative of him coming here and potentially closing this out and then having to stay in Canada now and location meeting player in a way that is a symbiotic relationship that I think is really impressive. There's just something about it I love, and I'm just all about this Toronto team winning this series. I don't know why. I naturally feel it. So I'm watching this series hoping they win. I really hoped that they won last night because I was like, I could get back to sleeping at night again with these little kids at home where you have the unpredictability of when are you going to have to get up in the middle of the night? When are you going to wake up in the morning? It's all predicated on what these kids do. And on Sunday night, my son, Connor, the baby, the 3-month-old, he slept for the whole night. He slept until 7 a.m. the next morning, which was just amazing. My wife touched me on the shoulder and said, "Oh my God, it's 6 a.m. And of course, you look at the monitor and you go, "Oh my God, he's still breathing." Why do we always think he's not going to breathe? That was one of the problems of that show, The Widow, that I watched on Amazon Prime. It was right before we had our son. And one of the big parts of that show is that a 3-month-old baby dies in its crib. And so that has freaked me out this whole time he's been 3 months. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it's a storyline, it means these things can happen. And it scared me because the couple wakes up in the morning and it's 8 a.m. and they're kissing and hugging. They can't believe how nice it is. And then the husband's like, "I'll go get the baby." And then you can hear through the monitor in the room, oh my God, it's not. And so I've been freaked out about that. But I freak out as a parent. When you look at these monitors, you always look at them until you can watch a couple of breaths go up and down on the sleep sack just to make sure. It's just what you do. You double down. Even if you see the baby move with its head, you still want to see its stomach going up and down, its diaphragm, right? And so I always do that, but he slept the whole night. It was amazing. And the weirdest part of it all is I felt lethargic on Monday. It was as well rested as I could possibly be. I slept the whole night. I had my whole CPAP sleep machine on, and I felt amazing in the morning. Then I had my normal coffee, and I was almost like overstimulated and too well rested to where I was like lethargic. Now today, I stayed up to watch that game. When the game ends like that, then you're like not ready to go to bed. So I didn't even go to bed till like 12:30. Then the baby got up at 3:30, so I had to get up, so that broke sleep. Then he went back down at 4, and then the 4.5-year-old came in at 6:15 or something, and then that woke it up. So I'm on less sleep, but I feel better today, weirdly enough. I feel more engaged with the world. I feel more engaged with my ability to get through things. The coffee hits in a high-level way. You get your coffee in the afternoon, your latte, got that, I'm ready to go. And then I'll do okay with class tonight. It's the weirdest thing. I still would prefer to get all the sleep, though, because what sleep does, while it might make me a little more lethargic in the day, sleep just has a way of covering all the little aches and pains you have around your body. So when you get less sleep, maybe if you have a balky back, those parts of the back hurt a little more. It's almost the way people speak when they say, if they've had knee surgeries or if they have balky body parts and they can feel that the rain is coming before we all can see it coming. They can feel it because there's moisture in the air, and that moisture kind of comes in around the joints in those problem areas. Sleep kind of does that too. Not getting sleep is like knowing that a storm's coming in. You just feel everything. But it's weird like that. So that's where we are. But I watched that game, and now we'll have game 6 on Thursday. Let's keep this thing going, I guess. I would hate to see Toronto lose this series. I know there's still 2 games, but I can also see Golden State just not letting this thing die and keep this thing going. I just could see it. I could see anything. That's the problem with this series. So, I mean, it's not the problem. It's a great thing. But the weird thing with this series, it's juicy. The storylines are juicy. The narratives are juicy. But there's no juice, right? Last night had some juice. There was back and forth. There was action. There was bad storylines with KD going down. There were good storylines with him coming in and with the back and forth in the fourth quarter and, pulling victory from the jaws of defeat for the Warriors. So it was juicy, but there's just not been a lot of juice in this series. And a lot of people have talked about the ratings being down as much as they are after the first few games. Game 3 crashed 21% from the Game 3 of a year ago. And that's crazy because a year ago, the Cavs were on their way to being swept. They were down 2-0, so there's not a lot of juice. But a lot of it, too, is the Canadian market. So Canada doesn't really count in the ratings because these are U.S. ratings. So if you counted Canada and their television networks the way we would domestic. If we counted them as if they were domestic, it would have been 17.5 million viewers, which is only down 3% versus a year ago, which again was 18 million. And I was reading this in Ad Age that they said, and while this certainly makes a case for the NBA's global ambitions in as much as it demonstrates that overall fan interest hasn't wavered, it's also worth noting the U.S. advertisers aren't terribly concerned with the Canadian audience. So we're getting the ratings, but advertisers aren't pumped about it because what do they care if the rest of the pie is being filled by Canada? They're not dying to advertise to Canada, which is a slightly different market than the U.S. and is one that is maybe not as lucrative for American companies. As rightly or wrongly, Robin Williams said in one of his comedy specials on HBO, I think it was HBO, he said Canada is like the the loft on top of the really cool party, but they are the party now because what they're doing in Canada with Jurassic Parks all around the country and how alive that arena is. That's Scotiabank. I miss when it was called Air Canada, but Scotiabank Arena, it's phenomenal. And I really would like to see Toronto win this series. I just really would. I think it brings a lot of juice to next year as well. If the Warriors are coming off of a loss in a finals, if Kevin Durant, what his situation is, what Kawhi's situation is now if they win. If they win, he's got to stay, doesn't he? If they lose, maybe not so much. But the glue that comes from winning a championship, he's a god there forever. Now, he'll still be one even if he leaves, but why leave that? Why leave that feeling? Kawhi's different, though. So maybe he doesn't think like that. He's like a cyborg. So I think it's going to be interesting. Another interesting thing, I got like 50 books on my Amazon Kindle. I just buy books all the time, especially if I use BookBub, which gives you discounted book deals every single day. So maybe if a book I've always wanted to get appears on that BookBub email that gets sent to you, I just buy it because it's $2. Who cares? The problem with that is you're just oversubscribed with books. I just got 1 million digital books and I never get to them. And what'll happen is I'll open a book, I'll start reading it, I'll make a lot of headway in the first week or two, I'll get to like 30%, and then it just dies because I do other things, and all I think about is the fact that I have 70% left still, and I'm not going to make a dent in that on some random Sunday night. I have to pick back up with the storyline. I'm forgetting things. I don't want to start over. It's not a good look. It just doesn't work, and I never get into all these books. And so I happened to be listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he had an angel investor named Naval Ravikant. It was a good one. He's an angel investor to technology firms. And one of his ideas, which you can find online if you look him up, because this is one of the things he pushes, he talked about how he just starts reading books and he's not worried about finishing them. I want to try this. So if I just start reading books, the ones that really hook me, I'm going to keep reading. And if they don't, I'm just going to jump on to the next one. And you're still gleaning ideas from them, regardless of whether you're finishing them. Now, for me, it's important to finish. I want to finish these books because it's just it's a feeling of accomplishment. I hate the idea of leaving something unread, especially if I bought it, even if it was for $2. But if it was a book I spent the time to get and buy, I want to read it. I want to finish it, close it out, take it off the download on my device. But I think I should be starting more books. We have this digital platform that allows us access to books on a one-tap basis. Why leave them all unread until I arbitrarily finish some novel I'm reading about New Zealand in the 1800s, which is a good book. The Luminaries is good, but I'm not dying to read it every night. And so because I'm not dying to read it every night, I just stop reading everything. I read my current events, my New Yorker, my Economist, all that, but I don't read the books that I've bought. And then years go by and you have all these books and you're like, why did I buy that 5 years ago? Why what was the thing that recommended that to me? So I'm just going to start doing this. I'm going to just start opening a different book every day and just starting to read it. And if I continue with it, fine. If I don't, whatever. But maybe it'll give me an impetus to then read other books that I've started and just go back and forth like that. Just keep the portfolio diversified enough where you're always reading books. Maybe spending 30 minutes a day reading a book somehow. And if you don't finish it, hey, whatever, you still gleaned something from it. The philosophy doesn't align with my values exactly, but it made a lot of sense as a way to just start all these books. I hate having all these unfinished books. And a part of me is like, well, I'm going to be 37 in July. I've only read this many books since I've bought them in 5 years. I'll never finish these books. And it becomes a weird thing where that's like a psychological concern, is that you're not finishing stupid books that you bought. So I thought that was interesting. I also just finished the show Fleabag, which is on Amazon. I was driven to watch this show because a lot of the podcasts I listen to, whether it's Bill Simmons, whether it's The Watch, which is on Bill Simmons' The Ringer and features Andy Greenwald and Chris Ryan, they talked about this show Fleabag as if it was something that was just the best thing this year almost. And so I saw it was only a 6-episode per season show, 30-minute episodes, kind of a British feel. And so I just started watching it and I cleared the deck of it. Really good show, almost about a ne'er-do-well, mid or early 30s British woman who owns a cafe, has all the normal family issues we all have, and her friends and hangers-on. And I know that probably just made you not want to watch it, but it's really interesting. And it does some really interesting things, especially in season 2, which is a lot of what the TV people are really harping on as an amazing innovation. So, you know, in a lot of these TV shows where the actor will talk to you as an aside, so it's breaking the fourth wall. You see this on, what's that show? House of Cards, right? So the Kevin Spacey character, Francis Underwood, he'd be talking in real life with the cabinet or with legislators or whatever, but then he would look away, almost Shakespearean. He would look away to the camera and talk to us to let us in on what he's really thinking or what the truth of the matter is. And so that's always something we expect. In Fleabag, what happens is the main character begins talking to us and is talking to us the whole time. But in season 2, she begins talking to a priest. And that priest starts going, "What are you doing?" Like, he breaks the wall of the wall that she's already breaking to talk to us. He notices she's doing it. And it's a weird thing. Now, when I came across it, it was not as innovative as all these TV people were telling me, but the show is really good. It's not a huge investment in time because it's 30-minute episodes, six episode seasons. Really good show, though. I enjoyed it. I like kind of watching some of this Amazon stuff because they're trying. I liked The Widow, as I said, other than that scene. Fleabag's good. The Romanovs are good. I want to see Jack Ryan. I've been told a bunch of other shows are good. Sneaky Pete, even though it didn't get picked back up, I think after 2 seasons. I've heard Bosch is good. I've heard there's a handful of shows I've heard are pretty good, and the quality's good. It's always like this beautiful 4K on a lot of their shows, and it doesn't feel as overwhelming to me as Netflix does. It's not like they're coming out with as many shows, so it almost feels more of a good that you want to watch because there's only so many, and you can kind of move your way through it without feeling like there's 100 more getting piled back on top of you, and as if the thing you're watching almost doesn't matter at the time. Although I have started watching The Bodyguard as well on Netflix. A lot of people say to watch that. That's a 6-episode show too. That's really good. That's another British show, and it's about a bodyguard for a home secretary, which is like a cabinet minister in Britain, and with all the terrorist stuff around Britain, and I think he was a former soldier, and he actually stops a terrorist attack in the first episode, which is neat, on a train. It's a really good show. Very gritty London, right? Whereas Fleabag is a very fun London. But we see that with our own shows in the U.S. We can see New York portrayed in different ways. We can see L.A. portrayed in different ways based on the oeuvre of the director and cinematographer. Lastly, I wanted to talk about Apple's newest announcements at the WWDC 2019, which was last week in Cupertino. This is the Worldwide Developer Conference. So this is really Apple not talking to the consumers, but talking to the developers, telling the developers, giving them a signal as to what's coming on the platform, on the new OS, the operating system, in the next 3 to 4 months. So usually they do this event in June, and then sometime early in the fall, the new OS comes out. But it gives the summertime for the developers to update their apps, to create new apps for the new operating system, gives them the time to be prepared for that new operating system to be released. But because so many people love what Apple's about and always want to see what the new innovations are, consumers watch this too. So they watch it just to see what's coming out. So I kind of just wanted to go through a couple of the things that I saw from the conference that were somewhat interesting. We've said this, I feel like, as a caveat to anything we talk about Apple in the last handful of years. There's not a ton of innovation coming out of Apple anymore, not to the levels we expected. Now, should there be? I don't know. Is there an innovation cost that's not happening that we can't see as consumers, but that Apple should be seeing? It's hard to tell. Are we in iterative innovation now? Are there big things? Are there big leapfrogs to happen in technology that just a lot of these providers, whether they're Google, Apple, the main platforms, are they all just not seeing the future anymore? Or are there just not innovations right now because we don't have 5G or 6G internet? Things that, platforms would be able to take advantage of for new technologies that we don't see. It's hard to tell. But at least from a normal consumer point of view and someone who follows Apple a lot, it doesn't seem like a ton of new things are coming out that are giving you the wow factor, that are making you awe-inspired. But things come out, and there's enough to be excited about without having to buy new hardware, which a lot of people are not buying anymore. When you're talking tablets, even phones or watches, everything is software, everything is services now. Recurring revenue, whether you're talking subscriptions to music, to television, they're trying to now, they've done the hardware, they're now trying to build the services. It's sort of like countries. Countries build all the infrastructure first. They build new cities, like China. They build new cities, and it's hardware, and it's goods from Africa to build it. And then what happens when these things are built? They're ghost towns, and so you have to kind of move countries from building to services, software, right? And so that's what's happening with Apple as well, just as if Apple's a country. In some ways they are. So some of the things Apple announced: dark mode for iOS. So I guess this is sort of like on an app where you can turn it dark, right? So some of my reading apps, I can make it dark mode and it's black. It's good for reading at night. So this looks like on an OS level, you can change it to dark mode and everything goes dark. That's kind of interesting. There's swipeable texting and messages and suggested contacts for when you share things with those you message most frequently. The music app brings a lyric mode that shows the words live alongside the song. I've seen this on certain apps. Amazon was really early to this. They've done a good job with that kind of stuff on their app. Memoji are getting more personalization tools like makeup option, hairstyle, and hair accessories. Not interesting to me. Reminders are getting a large refresh. I never use reminders. I tend to use Wunderlist, and I'm not big on reminders through my phone, although maybe I should be. The reminders I like are when I set up a meeting and it tells me when that meeting's coming, which is so basic. But it's saying if you tag someone in a reminder, you also get that reminder the next time you message that contact when it's time to chat about whatever you had noted before. It's a lot of work on the consumer to utilize all these great innovations. You have to remember to like set a reminder to do this, to go to this. These shortcuts, they're supposed to be shortcuts, but they seem like long plays. Maps is getting a much bigger update that offers more a detailed map and a shortcut on the launch page that shows your favorite spots and collections of places saved. When you tap on a place, you'll get a street view photo. So Apple's not been into that. It looks like this is a huge overhaul for the maps on Apple, which is a decent app at this point. Is it Google Maps? No, but it's a lot better. And if you're somebody who uses a lot of Apple products, it might be worth your while to be using Apple Maps. If it comes to parity with Google Maps and you're an Apple person, you should use it because it's going to integrate with a lot of your Apple products in a better way. So when I use Apple Maps and I set it, I set a location, it'll actually start tapping my watch. So it'll tap the right side of my wrist. If I have to turn right, it'll tap the left side. It gives little indications, which is a nice little thing that you don't get on Google Maps. Someone will tell me I probably do, but it's just built right in. Photos app now has a photo sorting mode that divides your pictures into days, months, and years. Photos is a mess. It just doesn't seem to be that intuitive or smart. So we'll have to see how that happens. But developers can access a beta for iOS 13 today, and the public can try it in July. New security protocols for HomeKit and app permissions. So Apple's trying to be the security maven. They want everyone to feel like they're protecting your data as a cost for being a premium subscriber by being a premium psychographic, by being an Apple user. They're trying to do this because Facebook is a big competitor, Google's a big competitor, and those seem to be a little fast and loose with the security at times, which tech can be because there's a lot of innovation that happens. There's the whole idea of launch and iterate, right? Or break things and fix them. And so for tech to move forward, you often have to move past things like security because security is slow. It's stopping things. It's not allowing for things to happen quickly. And tech sometimes needs that. So there is a give and take. It's sort of like Democrats and Republicans. Like they sort of need each other to move forward and to stop and to have a diversity there. But Apple's very big on security. Siri now has a more natural voice with new features on CarPlay and AirPods. So they have a new voice, which is entirely neural text-to-speech technology rather than human-based recordings. I don't know how I feel about that. We'll have to see. There's extended support for Siri on other Apple devices like the AirPod. I don't love using the AirPods to speak to Siri because then you're just yelling out in the open and it just feels strange. Speaking of AirPods, so Apple released newer AirPods, which have slight upgrades to them, but the big one is a wireless charging case for the AirPods, which to me is a big deal. I hate with the AirPods that I have to plug them in every time to charge them. And you do get 24 hours to a charge on that little AirPod charging box. But they always seem to start running down at the worst possible times. And so I like the idea of the wireless charging where you just drop them on a wireless charging pad and you're all good. I have wireless charging pads everywhere I am, whether I'm at work, I'm at home. But I didn't want to buy an $80 box to then house my existing AirPods in this box so I could wireless charge. So I came across a really cool product, which I bought on Amazon for only 18 or 19 bucks, which turns your existing AirPods charging case into a wireless charging case. So it's like a little case that goes on top of the existing case, and plugs into the little input, and then the outer case actually does the wireless charging. So it's almost like a Mophie case for a first generation AirPods case. So that should be coming today or tomorrow. I'm really kind of excited to have that without having to pay all that price, and to really wait for a transformative AirPods update. I don't want to pay $200 for the newest AirPods and the wireless charging box or case if it's really not that much of an upgrade. On the HomePod, the speaker can now recognize between different voices. When you're commuting to and from the home, you can also tap your iPhone over the HomePod to transfer where you're at in a song between the two devices. A few new updates ran out Siri. CarPlay support is now compatible with more third-party apps like Pandora and Waze. I'm not big on the CarPlay. My CarPlay is an iPhone hooked into my Toyota Prius bootleg original interface. The iPad gets its own OS. This is neat. Apple now recognizes the iPad as its own platform by spinning off iOS into its own iPad-specific system. This is kind of cool. So you can actually have new views on the home screen where you almost have the normal iPad screen, and then on the 1/3 on the side screen, you get like that widget screen that you get like when you swipe your phone to the left, or you swipe right on your phone and you get like a widget screen. So you'll be able to do that. App switching on slide over mode can be accessed by just dragging up. So it looks like there's a lot of things that are going to come to the iPad with its own OS. That'll be good. File view also looks a bit more like it does on Mac OS. iPads will also now support USB thumb drives or camera imports from USB. It's interesting. We'll have to see how that nets out. Mac OS Catalina. So the new Mac OS came out. This is now important to me because I actually, for the last year, have had an Apple MacBook Pro. So I now am open to these updates, which I never talked about before. We all know iTunes is gone. It was funny in my marketing class. This was the story I brought to the class, and there was one guy in there, this guy who does taxes for the African community locally. And he was like, I need this guy to talk to me again about, there's no way they're taking iTunes. He was like apoplectic about the fact that Apple had closed iTunes and he wasn't even aware of it. But we're saying goodbye to iTunes, and the new version of macOS called Catalina, Apple will break up the app into 3 separate apps for music, podcasts, and TV. Anyone who's really been paying attention understands that those 3 apps have always been there, have always been available on the iOS. So nothing new there. It's just you don't have the single interface of iTunes, which was very disparate and not very organized anyway. The podcast app lets you search for the show and episodes based on content, similar to what Google announced at its own OI conference last month. That's cool because it really is a black box in iPads. In podcasts, you search, and really, unless the terms or person you're searching are in the title of the show, there's just no context to it. It's not, nothing else comes up. So it's good to know that you can search on subjects, and there's a deeper search criteria happening that's bringing in podcasts, which might have to do with what you're looking for, that are more than just the title of the show or the title of the episode. The TV and music apps also look just like what was leaked earlier, and more colorful icons, blah, blah, blah. The Mac also supports the iPad as a second display. This is cool, offering a workaround for those who wanted a touchscreen on their MacBooks. So this is good. So you can bring a second screen option to your existing setup if you have these devices already. So I am in that camp, so I will be doing that. Apple calls this feature Sidecar. The iPad can be connected via both wired and wireless connections. I will really be on that because I do have the iPad Pro 11-inch and I have my MacBook Pro. So I'm excited to have that. Good for schoolwork if you're in a textbook on one and you want to be doing problems on the other. Both iOS and macOS will soon offer voice control that lets you control everything from opening apps and adjusting the volume to other actions like editing text. Voice dictation are processed locally on the device without sending any voice information to the cloud. On the apps front, a new Find My app will now let you search for your device even if it's offline by using Bluetooth beacon that bounces off other Apple devices near the misplaced device. This is great because how many times do you open up the Find My app or Find My Friends and it doesn't work, and it's a pain in the ass, and you're like, well, what good is this feature at the very time I need to find my AirPods? They're probably in my home, but when I'm trying to do the chirping sound, when I'm trying to ping it, I'm getting no noise. Lastly, Apple announced Project Catalyst, a framework that lets developers port iPad apps to the Mac. Developers can access catalysts, blah, blah, blah. Swift UI makes coding faster. This is interesting. Another little something for the developers. Swift UI is a new framework to make coding on Apple's coding language even faster. So everything I saw on Twitter from developers of apps I enjoy were like, oh, I'm totally jumping to this. So anything where you can make the job of people trying to get a product to the market quicker and without onerous programming language and processes is always going to be good. So they're saying Apple says the resulting products should require fewer lines of code overall, allowing devs to adopt new features without adding much to their workload. That is great. There was an expensive new MacBook Pro unveiled, which is, people are saying it looks like a cheese grater, a laundry basket, blah, blah, blah. That always happens with new Apple devices, but it's expensive. I don't have a price here, but it was a couple. Pro Display, XDR. So there's a lot of things I wouldn't get here, but a monitor, it's 32-inch LCD screen with Retina and a 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio, extreme dynamic range, XDR, can connect 6 displays for up to 120 million pixels of display. So that stuff doesn't resonate with me because it's like, it's just big and it's almost like talking about the Big Bang. Like, I don't get it. Or dark matter, you know. As you can imagine, all this power won't come cheap. The Mac Pro starts with an 8-core Intel Xeon, $6,000, while the Pro Display XDR is $5,000. The stand is sold separately for another $999. A stand for $999. tvOS, so the Apple TV, the TV operating system, brings multi-user support. This is good. So with YouTube TV, I can do this already. I can log in as myself, so it keeps my preferences when I'm watching YouTube TV. I can log in as my wife. I wouldn't do that, but she can log in, or I can log in as a generic family room, which includes a lot of kids stuff, which I don't want in my personalization, in my personalized settings. So tvOS overall is bringing this, where you can log into a session for all the apps on the home screen for Apple, and all of the personalization happens to your account. So it looks like there's a simple kind of back and forth toggle between those logins. So there'll be an update, brings a redesigned homepage that shows previews of TV shows and movies, similar to what we see on Amazon. Apple TV will support more third-party game accessories like Xbox One and PS4 controllers. The new tvOS offers multi-user support, as I said. watchOS gets its own app store. So I am now a Apple Watch Series 4 user. Love it. I got the 40-inch, which is smaller than the 42 I had in the old sizing spectrum. So it used to be 38 and 42. Now it's 40 and 44. I got the 40 because I thought 44 would be big, and I wanted to pay a lot less. I actually used Amex points to buy the watch, which was kind of cool. But the Watch OS 6 will have its own dedicated app store. Before, you had to do everything on the phone and port it over to the watch. So now there's going to be less need for the phone, which might mean that people could buy the Apple Watch without needing a phone. I still don't believe it till I see that, but let's see what happens. A few new Apple-specific apps are coming to the device, including a calculator app. God, I couldn't imagine using a calculator on the phone, but maybe good for tips. On the watch. Split bills might be good for that. And a voice memo app for recording on the fly. There are new health and fitness updates, such as long-term activity trends of how your fitness levels have changed over the past months and years. This one's weird. Apple is also adding menstrual cycle tracking to the watch for female health to get alerts on upcoming periods and when their fertile windows are. That, to me, feels a little invasive. Now, I'm not a woman, but as you can tell, I hope. But not that there's a problem with that. But that's weird to me. So Apple is all of a sudden going to ping you with messages, hey, it's coming, watch out. So a woman's going to be giving a presentation in a business meeting, and then all of a sudden it's going to ping them on their Apple device, hey, watch out, menstrual cycle coming. I don't know about that. That just seems a little weird. But maybe I'm wrong. So that's all that, guys and gals, I guess, if I'm going to talk about that. That's where we are. Good little update, good little check-in. We got some basketball, we got some Apple, we got some life and NBA. We got NBA and NBA. So I'll talk to you later, folks. Thanks for listening.